Are you a scaling SaaS founder?
Ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those who don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Hey, welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where SaaS growth is like exploring uncharted islands, full of discovery, adventure, and the thrill of finding hidden treasures along the way. I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I help B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. And speaking of epic, I had an epic birthday here in Fiji yesterday. Went diving to start the day, got sung to on the boat. It's kind of a surprise and a first. Afterward, went to a natural water slide, Fijian village, and visited the International Date Line. Of course, the option to celebrate twice or stay a year younger. What do? Well, celebration won. So we wrapped up the night with singing and kava, lots of both. Amazing, memorable birthday. I mean, great day on an awesome trip. And then followed that up today with diving on the legendary Great White Wall. On this trip, when choosing places to stay and to dive as well, I read reviews, spent a fair amount of time reading about places, owners, values, community involvement, like give back projects, because that stuff really matters to me. And I'm not alone in that. You may do that too. 77% of consumers prefer to buy from brands that share their values. So how do we communicate that in our content? In a world flooded with AI-generated garbage, how can you truly stand out as a brand? Automation is being pushed really hard, and the problem is that often it feels impersonal. Humanity and connection, that's the important stuff that gets lost. And I spent a lot of time recently talking with extremely smart humans, specifically about how to connect at a deeper level with our audience. AI-generated content is everywhere. It's efficient, scalable, soulless, and beige. And while AI can churn out endless streams of content, it struggles to capture the nuances of human emotion and experience. And as a result, brands risk to become faceless, disconnected, blah, to their audience. Can a brand have a personality? Of course. Our favorite ones all do. When we think about that, and I think that's one of the things that we have to do to cut through the noise, is really have a brand personality, have a soul. Let people know what you think. And I'm interested to know your thoughts on that as well. Drop them in the comments below. Can brands have a personality? If so, tell me about yours. What is your brand personality? Because I think having a soul as a brand is a tough one. And so here's what we're doing, and it is a work in progress. So let me know what you think. One is to showcase your brand's personality. Don't be afraid to let your brand's personality shine through, whether it's humor, storytelling, taking a big stance on issues that matter to you. Have an opinion, even if it's polarizing. Attract the right people and repel the other ones. I think that's one of the things that really makes brands more relatable and memorable. People are drawn to brands that stand for something, even if that means that everybody doesn't agree. And two is to engage in authentic conversations. So social media and other platforms have real conversations with the audience, kind of like this. I want you to respond. Tell me I'm on point. Tell me I'm stupid, whatever. Respond. And I'll comment back. I'll share personal insights. Like the birthday thing, ask questions, invite engagement. But I think the more that we interact with our audience on a human level, the more they see the brand as more than just a soulless company. They see it as a character that they can relate to. Something that is endearing to them. When they see themselves in your story, both of you win. And number three is to share behind the scenes content. And this is a real work in progress for me. So hang with me. Let your audience see the humans behind the brand, mess and all. We don't have to have the hair fixed and overproduce stuff. We just do, make things happen. So we'll be sharing more stories about the team, company's journey, challenges, which is actually one of my favorite parts of the podcast interviews, but I suck at it in real life and doing it myself. But when people see that a brand is made up of real people, experiences, flaws, mistakes, they're human, they connect. So that's a major goal for me, 2024 into 2025, continuing to humanize our brand in a world of blah, boring, AI-generated content, specifically with the goal of building genuine connections with you. So how have you humanized your brand? Share your experiences in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and hang with us with the podcast. And let's create some brands that truly connect together. This week, double founders. And our founder on Tuesday, Kirk Marple, founder and CEO of Graphlet. He's turning mountains of unstructured data into natural language questions, answers, and informed decision. We talked about his journey creating a narrow use case and examples for a broad solution and the unique challenges of bringing it to market. Our expert guest last week was Eric Mersch, SaaS CFO and author of Hacking SaaS, an insider's guide to managing software business success. We talked about scaling smart, financial mistakes, and things that could help or hurt valuations. If you missed either one of those episodes, go back and give them a listen because they are the shiznizzle. See, I don't think AI knows that word. I can't wait to see what happens in the captions. Our current guest, double founders week this week, Brad Dickinson, co-founder of Social HP, SaaS-provided employee advocacy and thought leadership platform. Brad has been in the industry for a decade, helping companies and individuals tell their stories and stand out from the crowds. Welcome someone who is supercharging executive thought leadership with horsepower and making it super shareable. Brad Dickinson. Hey, Brad, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, can you share your journey in social media marketing and what inspired you to found Social HP?
Absolutely. So I and we have been in social media marketing for over a decade. Doesn't feel like it's been that long, but it has. So
it never does.
Part, the motivation has been in a similar vein. It's been trying to deliver to our clients, organizations, and also individuals within those organizations uniquely an opportunity to empower them with a voice that they have, but they don't always know how to best leverage it to impact the outcomes that they're looking for, right? It's a super, super powerful value proposition for particularly large organizations, but small ones as well, to be able to lean on all of the folks that make them who they are. All the organizations are is a group of individual people that get together with a common mission. And when you look at it that way, each individual voice can have an impact on how audiences engage with the content that those organizations are making. And so employee advocacy, executive thought leadership, and things like that can make a huge impact, particularly on platforms like LinkedIn with how expansive that they are today, and can really help drive your message home to partners, to prospects, to clients, and pretty much everybody.
So how does Social HP's employee advocacy platform help companies and individuals tell their stories and then stand out in crowded markets?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. There's always kind of a yin and a yang, or a push and a pull when it comes to marketing, period, but particularly social marketing, right? Because you've got an organization that has a particular set of brand values. And particularly in highly regulated industries, you've got a lot of legal concerns that go into an organization's brand book, is what they would call it, right? What they can and can't say, what they want to and don't want to say. And when those things come down to not just organizational desire in terms of how they'd like to position themselves, but also legal liabilities, you cannot simply take the reins off of any sort of marketing campaign, particularly a social one. And so the reason that that's exacerbated in social media is because I, as an individual, have a conduit, i.e. my LinkedIn, as the best example from a business perspective, to say anything and everything that I want to say, right? Now, if you have the power to do that as an individual, when you look at that from an organization's perspective, what you want to do is try to provide guidance to people that are going to be saying things on LinkedIn. You want to educate them and train them on what can't be said from a legal perspective. Now, with a LinkedIn and a Facebook and et cetera, those individual employees are not always looked at as speaking for the organization. So you can't necessarily come and hold an organization liable for certain things that individuals are saying on platforms like this. But in other cases, you can. And so to be able to take the best of what social media can provide to an organization and an individual from their own career path perspective, and then also mitigate the downside of something being taken out of context and having, just like a PC issue, or an actual legal issue is really nice for us to be able to put a piece of software around these efforts to give everybody the confidence that the organizational brand can be met. People's individual brands can be represented in terms of voices of individuals, but you're also going to put those guardrails in place so that people do not say the wrong thing, particularly from a legal perspective.
Right. And I think that's becomes a lot more common as companies grow, and you kind of see two extremes, from small companies, large companies. The larger, kind of the extreme of, nothing goes on social media, particularly at an executive level, unless it's pre-approved and vetted and scripted and really polished. And then you have the opposite end of the spectrum, where it's the Wild West and everybody just kind of does their own thing, and there's not that brand cohesiveness, that message, the look, the feel, but there's got to be a middle ground. Absolutely. Of really tapping into the audiences that are out there, while giving a professional message and engaging like humans. That's what social is about.
Yep, absolutely. And the days of doing nothing full stop are getting few and far between for a lot of organizations. When you look at the power that particularly in executive level folks have to impact business development, to impact partnerships, to impact trust and transparency around really core initiatives to what a lot of audiences are looking for, like what's your DEI position, those types of things. At large organizations that have these executives that own large spheres of influence, they kind of can't just sit behind their big closed doors anymore. They have to have a voice on social. And so it's even more important to be able to have a way to do that and to do it in a way that's safe. And you mentioned cohesiveness. That's really difficult to do when you've got thousands of employees that all of them have more or less understanding of what marketing is, what a marketing campaign is, what the content looks like, what the mix should be. Most employees don't have any idea of what that is. So if they're participating in any sort of content sharing, hopefully they found something in a content library that was at least approved by the organization, but that's about as good as you're going to get, right? Social HP allows the organization to look at it from a communications, a branding, a marketing perspective, or even an executive communications perspective for certain leaders, and make sure they're driving a couple of key ingredients that we look at with all of our clients, which is the relevance of the message, which of course is key. And you can do that, broadly for multiple audiences, or you can kind of drill into more targeted audiences with the relevance of a message. You want to look at the consistency. What is basically the cadence and the mix look like for any sort of marketing campaign, which is really important to the success of that campaign. And then look at the longevity, because like any marketing effort, if you don't have continued activity, then you're not really going to get the outcomes that you want either. So that relevance, that consistency, and that longevity is really difficult to drive when you're relying on hundreds or thousands or even tens of thousands of individual employees to all execute this collaborative marketing effort. And Social HP really helps do that by giving the teams that are responsible for kind of, building the strategy around these marketing efforts to actually activate the individuals in a way that makes sense for the overall campaign.
Yeah, I think activate is a really important concept, because most companies really, really struggle with low employee participation.
Yep, it's true. There's for the entire 10 to 12 years that we've been in this industry, the statistic around active users has not changed much. And it's not for lack of trying, but it's really difficult to break one way or another. The band is about 10 to 13%. So interestingly, it's almost hard to go below 10%. You've always got a set of people that understand social marketing, that really want to participate in this, that are naturally involved and active on platforms like a LinkedIn. And so they're there doing this, whether or not you have an initiative to drive this type of activity. And you're going to get that 10 out of every 100 employees or 100 out of every 1,000, roughly. But then to take that 10% and say, well, geez, this is great. We've got these 10 people at our 100-person company that are making an impact and getting our content out in front of their audiences. Let's make that 10 95.
Right.
That's nigh impossible. Even with all of the motivation, all the training, everything that we've done as an industry over the last 10 years, from gamifying systems to providing rewards like Starbucks cards and Amazon cards and all that good stuff, it almost doesn't matter what you do to push that active user rate up above 13% for any long periods of time is really, really difficult. So you end up being between that 10 and 13%, almost regardless of which way you decide to tackle that user rate. And one of the first things that we did to innovate in this industry was what we call the done for you methodology, right? Which is to put those folks that are in the marketing and the communications departments in the driver's seat. And then they do what we call stage the campaigns. So they can stage all of the campaigns for their employees, which again puts them in control of what content is going out to which destinations at what time. And so when you look at the opportunity to kind of build a cohesive marketing campaign with those variables, you have a much more successful outcome. So the fact that the professional marketers can do that on behalf of large groups of employees, and then the employees get to focus on what their day job is, frankly, while they're busy, and then simply click a button that goes, yeah, cool, I took a peek at this. It makes me look great. And it helps out the organization, pushes our active user rate upwards of 86% on average. So you're getting a massive lift in terms of active users with Social HP.
Wow. That's really, really big. And I think having a platform like that really addresses that issue. With 13% to 86 is massive difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's really, really impressive. And I like the idea of done for you, that it's there and it makes it easy for the employees. And with it, you've been able to attract some pretty big companies, Hershey's, PepsiCo. Why does something like that really appeal to them with large companies, complex needs, and they're like, this is the perfect solution for us to get that message out to the masses?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a lot of that comes down, frankly, to something that you kind of referenced earlier in the conversation, which is scalability. If you're an organization of 10 people and you're a startup and everybody's there and kind of takes ownership over what they're doing and is at the organization for a reason, to toss out a quick, hey, let's share this great content on LinkedIn at a company meeting is going to probably do the trick, right? When you get to about 300 to 400 employees is when it starts to get really, really, really challenging, even in the best of cases.
Yeah.
And when you get to a Pepsi or Hershey's or some of the other organizations that we do business with, like PayPal or Accenture or MasterCard, they've gotten to the point to where there are companies within companies within companies almost at those types of organizations, right? And different regions across the world, different regions across the United States, different languages, different marketing strategies. There are a lot of reasons why this is extremely difficult to execute at scale. But even forget languages and global strategies and things like that. When you get to an organization that has that many people, there's not an easy way to stand up in front of everybody and say, hey, let's get this done today, guys, and then have those folks take action on it.
Right.
There's a workflow that they're not necessarily familiar with, even if they have been trained. When were they last trained and how did that stick? They've probably been in 3 different trainings on 3 different new tools since. How much time and energy do they have in their day when they're really busy? Did they remember their password or not? There's a million different reasons why this is extremely challenging to get done. And Social HP solves those and more, the ones that I mentioned and more, to ensure that these employees can leverage their voice, not only to add value to the organization, which when our clients come and buy from us, they're basically looking at all of the value that they can get from an organization, right? Some of the things that I mentioned, inclusive of overall, company value. There's statistics that show an increase in the valuation of an organization when employee advocacy and executive thought leadership is done well. But the individual folks that are making a decision to participate in this are also doing it because it perpetuates their own individual thought leadership.
Yeah.
Somebody who has a track record of being active and looking plugged in and looking like they've paid attention to their own industry over the last 2 or 3 or 4 years will get hired at the next potential job faster, right? And so we actually work with HR departments for a number of different reasons: talent acquisition, talent retention, things like that. And HR hiring managers will say one of the metrics that we'll look at when we've got a pool of candidates is whether or not they're active on LinkedIn. So, I don't think that's necessarily a staple across the board, but we're starting to see that more and more in the hiring practices in HR departments, is looking at whether or not somebody appears to be active on a regular basis on LinkedIn and is kind of representing themselves as a professional in the space.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of employees want to be active, and it just comes down to they don't have time, they don't know what to post. And I've tried doing it the way that you said. You do the all company meeting. Hey, everybody, go promote this thing, whatever it is. And 100 people and 20 of them will do it, and 80 of them will forget or get busy or can't find their password or whatever it is. And it just it doesn't work that way. So I love the solution and just making it very, very easy for them to engage, for them to really raise their status online. So it's not just about the company, but really deputizing the entire workforce to elevate their status, and it's all done for them. And probably better content as well.
Exactly. And that's what some of the users have come to us and said. And we've had a handful of users that benefited within their own kind of thought leadership posture that went and did find another role. And they called us up and they said, how do I get my new company to do this for me? How can I connect you to my comms team now so that you can get social HP in their hands? Because I want to continue to look as good as I did. And I don't frankly know how to do it myself. And another kind of anecdotal story is I had a CEO of a relatively smaller organization, but still call up directly and say, hey, my son looks like a rock star on LinkedIn. And I asked him what he's doing. And he said, I'm not doing anything. I'm just participating in a program that allows my professional marketers to basically be my personal PR team. They find the great content. They find the destinations that, the right platforms and the right audiences. And when my LinkedIn, in his particular case, serves up those audiences, they get the content out on my behalf. I don't need to do anything. I don't know how to create that content. I don't know how to, drive campaigns like that. And so this guy was basically calling saying, hey, how do I make my employees look like my son? Because I've seen my son really succeed through this program, and I want to do this for my employees. So that was kind of a cool day for me.
That's right.
But just to touch on something you mentioned, which is it's not just value to the organization, but to the individuals. And it doesn't matter, how much value a company could extract or how good a person looks. If it's not win-win on both sides, if the organization isn't getting what they're looking to do from a marketing initiative and the individuals aren't benefiting from it, it won't last forever. Yeah. So the fact that we're able to provide a win to both of those sides, albeit they're in the same house, but the employee and the organizational side both benefit from a program like Social HP. And that's why I think we're able to have long-term success with clients as well.
The reach, I don't know what the marketing spend would be to get the kind of reach you can with reaching everybody who's connected to your employee base, but it's got to be just a massive lift, making it easy to reshare, boosting engagements without doing all the paid campaigns. What is the impact?
Correct.
On a feature like that, on a company's social media reach, and just the cost effectiveness.
Mm-hmm. So there's when you drill into that, it depends on who your employees are, and if you look at it from an individual basis for a particular employee versus an executive, there's going to be a difference there because the executives usually own a much larger sphere of influence. Have more followers, those types of things. But if you look at it, if you step back and you look at it broadly, if you have, it almost doesn't matter the number, if you have 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 corporate followers. So my corporate company page has 1,000 followers. it's easy for me to go and post content there, and I get the eyeballs of those 1,000 people. But that usually corporate handles don't carry that much cachet in essence on LinkedIn. Well, when's the last time you went to a corporate page on LinkedIn, even at a company that you do business
Pretty
with?
much never.
I can't remember the last time. Never. I can't remember the last time I went to my own social HP corporate page. That tells you something, right? So if you look at the numbers in terms of reach, engagement, impressions, all of that good stuff, when you have an army of employees behind you, it is 100x or 1,000x compared to a company page alone. And if you want to start to target and get content in front of those audiences without leveraging and activating your employees, then you're stuck paying for it, which is possible. You can promote content on LinkedIn, you can place ads and things like that. But if you can do it with the current resources that you already have, then you're going to save a lot of money in accessing and educating those same audiences. If you look at an executive perspective, and this is why we've seen so many of our clients expand into what we would call an executive thought leadership program, and then are starting to sell a particular workflow to even brand new clients around executive thought leadership. It's a single executive in and of themselves sees about 7x more exposure, more engagement than a corporate brand. So if you have your CEO posting the same content as you posted on your corporate LinkedIn page, it's going to get 7x on average, more eyeballs, more engagement, more interaction than a corporate post will. And that's just one executive. The reason we've broken that out and provided a little bit more feature functionality around somebody who might have that type of visibility is because they also come with an accentuated kind of a highlighted liability as well. When Brad goes out there and says something on LinkedIn, the SEC and the FCC don't look at Brad and go, "Oh, he's speaking for the company. He's an employee there," and it kind of is what it is. Whereas if Brad's the CEO, then guess what? The SEC is going to come and sue the company for what Brad said because he does represent the company. And so with executives that kind of carry that type of visibility, there's a whole different workflow in terms of how you can approve the message for them, because they're oftentimes not hands-on with this type of activity on a day-to-day basis. So they need to deputize the legal department, the compliance department, PR, investor relations, other stakeholders in this process to kind of look at the messaging that might be positioned for them and make sure that they're not going to get in hot water. And then they also want to make sure that their personal brand is being attended to as well. So they can deputize like a chief of staff or a personal assistant to look at it from their own personal brand. And they can be involved in the process when they want to themselves personally as well. So there's some extra goodies packaged around what you might need and want to do to support what we would call like a C-suite. But those folks have a ton of value when you think about multiples on a corporate message versus what an employee can do.
Hey, ready to dominate your market and skyrocket your revenue? Dive into Small Fish, Big Pond, building a world-class business that swims circles around competitors. This book is packed with powerful marketing and leadership insights guaranteed to transform your business and operate world-class. Small Fish, Big Pond delivers proven strategies to sharpen your marketing message, deliver unmatched value to clients, and guide your prospects' buying journey to one inevitable conclusion: that your company is the only solution for them. Inside, you'll find step-by-step frameworks and time-tested growth principles to attract your ideal clients, convert them, and then transform them into your passionate brand ambassadors. Pick up the print, ebook, or audio today at smallfishbigpond.com or on Amazon. And remember, every single sale supports charity. All the profits go to charity. So dive in and make a difference. Well, how can companies develop a more strategic posture in leveraging that thought leadership through social media? What are things that they should think about? If they're not doing it today, how do they start?
Great question. So there's a saying in our industry, which is content is king. So number one, you want to ensure that you have content, which frankly today is becoming more easy than it ever has. It's no secret that AI is here, right? AI is here. It's here to stay. It can generate great content. And with a couple of simple prompts with a tool like AI or like Social HP or another AI tool, you can feed in an individual profile with a couple of prompts and what you want to see, and you can generate some really great content. And if you're doing this for your high visibility CEO, you don't have to live with what AI gave you. You can use it as a starting template, and then you can customize it to ensure that this is really, really exactly what you want it to be. But the point is that really good content is becoming easier to come by than it ever has. And so it puts a lot of organizations that have not gone down this path of employee advocacy into a position where they can start doing it and start doing it successfully, because they can generate relevant, good, and higher volumes of content. So, it's worth pointing out that good content is necessary for a good program. Of course, you can deliver bad content to anywhere you want all the time, and it's still bad content, right? So tuck that in the back in your mind in terms of, a starting point. You want to have that good content.
Yeah.
But to your question in how do organizations do this and do this effectively, that's actually a challenge even for us and our current clients to answer on a regular basis. That question never needs to stop being answered, because as you execute on a certain strategy, your competition is going to be doing that. The industry is going to shift. AI, again, is a great example of that, right? If you wanted to continue to look relevant, you had to start to look at what AI is going to do to your organization, to your industry. And you had to have thoughts around how are you going to take advantage of this? How is it going to benefit you? How is it going to benefit your clients, your customers, your partners? So that has to be an ongoing conversation. And part of Social HP is not just being able to identify, create content, and distribute it out to the audiences to where it makes the most sense through your employees, whether those are employees or executives, but then answering that question, did we do a good job? Right. Yeah. And we had clients literally ask us that after a quarter or two or three of using the product is, hey, how are we doing? Are we doing this right or not? And you can answer that question initially with what in our industry is relatively basic reporting. So whether you're coming to Social HP or any kind of social media platform, you're going to get a suite of reports that will show you what your content history looks like, who was sharing what, how much content did you share, what happened to that content in terms of likes and comments and reposts and things like that on a LinkedIn or a Facebook or an Instagram or anything like that, right? But having those metrics, that traditional reporting, does not really enable you to answer that question as to whether or not it's good, unless you have a very good understanding of what did you do in the past, where do you want to be in the future, and what your competitors are doing and what your industry is doing. And that's what competitors of ours in this industry don't provide you. Social HP, we have a tool that we call Stack Rank, and it does what it sounds like it does, which is stack rank you against your peers. And so now you can actually answer that question in context as to whether or not it's good. So let's just do it in a vacuum. I've got an executive that I want to position content for, and I've got 100 employees. And I just say, hey, you know what? Right now we get about 5 pieces of content out to our corporate page, and it results in 100 likes. I'm just making all this up, but to give us an easy example. And I think that if I were to get all my employees to share and my CEO to post, getting 1,000 likes to all of those things would be a big win. And so I do this through Social HP, and I get those employees to share, and my CEO posts. And at the end of the month, I realize I've got 1,500 likes. And I go, well, dude, I killed it, right? I wanted to get 1,000. I lifted massively from 100 to 1,500. That's got to be a huge win, right? And then we go check StackRank, and StackRank says that all of your competitors got 10,000 likes through more content, more posts, more whatever it is. And you go, well, geez, what I envisioned as success was not really success, right? It might have been a massive improvement over what we were doing, but it's not necessarily a success when compared to the peers of our executives, the peers of our other employees, or overall company organizational activity and engagement. So having Social HP to be able to execute on the aggregation, the delivery of your message and your content is really only half the battle. Being able to get all the traditional reporting, of course, is nice, but being able to put that in context of other employee bases, cohorts, other executives, companies, and industry-wide statistics allows you to answer that question, which you so intelligently kind of brought up, which is this successful? And then with that question answered once, and the visibility that we provide into what others are doing, you then can adjust your strategy. Well, geez, turns out we're not as good as we thought we were. Let's look at somebody who is. What are they doing that we're not? Oh, they're using more video, they're using more PDF, they're higher frequency, lower frequency, different topics. Maybe they focus in really, really tight on a single topic, and that drives their success. Maybe having a variety of different topics is what's driving their success. It could be different use case to use case, but having that information allows you to understand where you sit and create a more successful strategy as you move forward. So it's a massive part of the product.
Well, let's talk about your journey in building Social HP. Just the journey of the company, transition points. What have been the challenges in growing the company to this point? Great
question. There's a lot of challenges,
always,
which is part of the fun, part of the success, but there are always challenges. Sometimes it's nice to try to take a step back and look at what we've been able to do over the last 10 years, because if you don't take a big picture at it on a daily basis, it can feel like you're always just, pushing that water uphill, so to speak. Yeah. But we've been lucky enough to be around for the last 12 years. We've been lucky enough to work with a number of different partners that you named a couple, and I did as well. And I think one of the secrets to our success is not only listening to our clients, but kind of expanding that feedback, those feedback conversations to other organizations and other leaders that kind of are tangential to what we're doing right now. First and foremost, I think a lot of organizations say they listen to their customers, and some do, and sure, some don't. But that's not necessarily foreign to a strategy in terms of where you're going to go in the future. But we've done really, really well at sitting down on a regular basis with our customers, listening to what they're using our product for, where it's working, where it's not, being open to those conversations and listening to where they'd like us to be in 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years with them. And so that allowed us to develop, being a software company, it always is literally about developing in line with your customers. And so we've done that really well, and we did that well early on. And what that told us was, hey, we should probably figure out a way to do even more of this. If we're listening to our customers and it's helping us, stay where they need to be and be ahead of where they need us to be in terms of innovation, why wouldn't we start to look at other potential use cases that we think might be a fit? Other organizations that look and feel like clients of ours, other leaders that look and feel like certain executives that we support and do a great job in supporting right now. So what we've done is we've initiated what we call, an advisory campaign where we try to identify organizations and leaders that either are very similar but in different industries, or just simply look and feel like they're tangential to some of the things that we know we can impact very, very positively, and reach out and say, look, we'd love to have an open, frank conversation with you around what it is that we're doing, kind of give you a front row seat to how we're impacting the lives of an executive that looks like you, for an example. Where do you think that we could potentially impact people that are sitting in your seat, right? And even if it's not you individually, we're able to get a lot of good feedback from folks that say, geez, you know what, in my world, I could see this fitting into XYZ bucket. We struggle with this, and your tool could actually impact that from a positive perspective. And we've been able to identify new use cases for new clients, and simply kind of opening up what would traditionally be a listen to your client strategy, and just trying to do more of listening to people, right? Because oftentimes they know most what they're struggling with. And if you ask somebody, hey, what keeps you up at night? the answer that they give you in terms of what keeps them up at night is really powerful for you to be able to then resolve some of those challenges.
Well, yeah, as you're growing the business, what have been some of the kind of turning points, or maybe the decision making process for strategic things like hiring, funding, expansion, those types of things? How do you look at it?
That's changed over the years as well. I think, and I wouldn't think that we're unique in this perspective. Maybe we are, but I would gather to say that most young entrepreneurs, especially when they're just starting out, starting their organization, you kind of look at, geez, this is going to be my company, and you're very kind of stingy with your equity. And when you think about fundraising as an example, and kind of how you're going to bring people into the organization to help it grow, to help it succeed, to get insight and money that you need, because we've been lucky that our investors are not just providing money, but also insight and operational expertise and things like that along the way, which is, one of my recommendations to people would be make sure that when you make a money deal, that the money's at least only half the battle, right? Because there are people that will give you a check and then ask for a bigger one a couple years down the road. And then there are people that will give you that same check and will actually help you and coach you and mentor you along the way. So strictly from a fundraising perspective, look for money that actually comes with more than just the dollars associated with it. And we've been lucky to have investors like that. But more specifically to our path and to me personally is, early on, you're kind of so focused on how do I own 100% of the peanut stand, right? Yeah. Gosh, this is such a great idea. It's going to be so awesome. And, hey, right now, in our case, my co-founder and I, my partner, we own it all, right? Why don't we keep owning it all? Because then we'll have it all. And there's that, there's that desire to keep control of it, even from an equity perspective. And looking back on it 10 years, you go, geez, what a mistake, right? To be owning a small operation and be the only or the smartest person in the room is no way to grow a long-term successful business. Hopefully, at the end of 10 years, you're the dumbest person in the room because you've got a lot of really great people around you and you've shared the wealth in the journey with those people as well. So now I kind of look at it as a rising tide raises all ships. And when people decide to come and work with us and be with us and kind of join us in this mission, we want everybody to win in that. And so kind of that's distilled down very, very basically, but the difference between starting an organization as a young entrepreneur without a lot of success yet to 10 years later, having run and grown the organization, that would be my overall takeaway is, kind of be generous and willing to identify the people that can help you and do this with you and, compensate everybody accordingly, because it's a lot more beneficial to have very intelligent kind of bought in people in the organization and along the journey with you. And have, 10% of $1 billion is a lot better than 100% of $50,000. Right.
Well, what have you seen the benefits? I know you work with a lot of different companies, and what are the benefits, or maybe in the fundraising process of really having a big social media presence and tapping into that audience in a bigger way, especially when you're fundraising?
Yep. Exposure is definitely key to fundraising. Just through our own exposure, we eat our own dog food, as they like to say, in terms of, disseminating content out on behalf of ourselves and other folks that partner with us. And when you get a piece of content out there about having had a really successful conversation with somebody in the M&A space or around fundraising, whether or not you executed kind of a fundraising deal, just mentioning on LinkedIn as an example about, it was so great to connect with XYZ at, fill in the blank company around our fundraising needs. People see that, right? And a lot of these organizations have relatively sophisticated ways of identifying, listening tools and things like that will start to pull in a bunch of content whenever anybody mentions that they're on a fundraising, endeavor and things like that. And so then the tables shift to where you're not out there kind of trying to sell yourself and figure out where you're going to get the next dollar from, but they're reaching out to you and saying, hey, geez, through the grapevine, it looks like maybe you guys are on a fundraising effort, whether that's equity raising or debt raising or all the different things you can kind of look at when you're looking and how you're fuel your growth. People are reaching out to you and saying, hey, here's who I am. Here's what I do. If we're a fit for your efforts, let's please have a conversation. And so it changes the dynamic significantly if you get that right piece of content out onto like a LinkedIn, for example. You'll then have them reaching out to you and saying, let's have a talk, which is half the battle.
Without a doubt. Yeah, just breaking through the noise and getting to the right people. And it's always good when they reach out and start the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. And what I've noticed is that whether it's private equity, venture capital, angel, different funds, lots of different people are out there providing, growth money in a lot of different ways. It's hard to figure all that out, particularly when you're experiencing it for the first time, right? And one of the nice parts about leveraging social media to get the content out that's basically notifying everybody that you're in some sort of fundraising effort is that when they do come to you, so number one, they come to you, right, as I mentioned, but the other thing is they're not in the business of wasting their own time either. Right. And so as part of that outreach, they'll be very specific in terms of what it is that they do. So if you're looking for an equity raise, or you're looking for a line of credit, or you're looking for corporate debt, or you're looking for an angel investor, whatever it is that you're looking for, that. And so when someone reaches out to you and says, hey, here's who I am and what I do, if they're looking to, secure corporate debt and you're looking for equity, you can say, hey, you know what? Love that you reached out. Thanks. Let's stay in touch. That's not the style we're looking for. But so happy to make the connection. Right. But you oftentimes get a very good description of what it is that these folks are doing when they reach out for their benefit as well, so that you can say, hey, not the right time, not the right place. But it's really, really nice to be able to kind of go through and have these various folks reach out with what it is that they do. And you're going to have some that are structured for the type of fundraising that you want to do. And then those are the ones that you invest your time in.
But what are the benefits or challenges of being based in Canada and accessing capital from crown companies, BDC, EDC, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so we've benefited and seen challenges, as you mentioned, for being based in Toronto, which is our headquarters. The BDC and the EDC, for those that are watching anywhere outside of Canada, may not be familiar with. They're what we call crown organizations, which just means they're tied to the federal government, right? So a crown company is any organization that is part of the Canadian federal government. And the BDC specifically is focused on small business growth. And then the EDC is focused on small business growth that is importing, and exporting. So exporting a product and importing revenues. So they both operate in a very similar way. If you qualify for EDC, which means the majority of your revenue has to be coming from outside of Canada, and then you're bringing it back into Canada because you're a Canadian company, and therefore Canada benefits because you're going to pay taxes on that revenue, right? And so because we're based in Toronto and most of our revenue does not come from Canadian companies, we have a bunch of great Canadian companies that work with us, but the lion's share of our revenue comes from United States-based companies and or other global regions. And so we specifically, and others in our shoes, would qualify for various incentives and money from the EDC as well as the BDC. So all things considered, being a crown company and often being focused on fueling growth for small organizations, and then the EDC's case, import revenue, it is government, so that you're going to have that bureaucracy in terms of paperwork and things like that, but they make it relatively as frictionless as they can to qualify and then to get paperwork done and all that good stuff. And so we've benefited definitely from being able to secure money from the BDC and the EDC because of where we're located and the business. The challenging part is more in bookkeeping and taxes and things like that, right? Because exchange rates are always fluctuating. So whether or not you sell your product in USD, which kind of seems to make the most sense for a company like us because it's where 80% of our clients are. But then you're doing the handling and the recognition of the exchange rate back on your end on the books, which something as simple as collecting money from a client that pays in USD when it hits your bank account in CDN. And you're wondering where that payment came from and how to recognize it and what client sent it and things like that, which sound kind of insignificant, but there are challenges like that in terms of just identifying bookkeeping items and reconciliation and things like that. So overall, I'd say it's been a benefit for us specifically to be headquartered in Canada.
So if you were going to go back and tell yourself something at the beginning of either founding the company or maybe even earlier in your entrepreneurial journey, what would that advice be?
Urgency on two fronts. Urgency just in terms of your daily focus and your outcomes. It's really easy to get caught up in a lot of work that needs to be done. That frankly, a lot of it tends to be busy work, right? And I've developed a saying for myself over the years that's don't confuse activity with productivity, because there's a lot of ways you can be active. There's a lot of work that can be done. It's not always productive. So set some targets for yourself long-term and short-term, and make sure that the work that you're doing in the place that you're spending your time is actually moving you forward towards those goals and you're being productive, not just active. So urgency within your own world, your own space, because particularly oftentimes as an entrepreneur early on, you are the only one that's going to move yourself forward. That's it. You're not at a big company with other people to help. You don't have supporting departments and other people that are pushing that same water uphill again, but it's going to have to be you. And so if you can very urgently recognize what you can do most effectively to push yourself to where you want to be tomorrow, that's going to be something that you can continue to focus on to ensure that you're doing that to the best of your abilities. And then the reason I say urgency on both fronts is urgency within your prospects. So no matter what stage you're in, sales is always a huge part of running an organization. Nothing happens until somebody sells something, right? And so oftentimes, urgency is something that you need to create within your prospect base. COVID is a great example, particularly with a MarTech tool like we are, and one that can massively kind of add value to teams that are distributed all across the world, which COVID, all of a sudden overnight, everybody was distributed. So that created an urgency for us. And we definitely benefited from that urgency of organizations needing and wanting something like social HP. But, even now today, as COVID is further and further in the rearview mirror in terms of how we're all running our lives, and then you look at economic constraints and challenges that you will go through, whether it's a good time or a bad time at the moment, you're going to go through challenges, in broader economies and then even smaller within your own organization, to where people aren't spending the way that they did last month or last year. And they will again next month, but at the moment it's tight, right? Sometimes you need to figure out a way to create urgency within buyers, and it's not always easy to do. So one of my big pieces of advice would be urgency within your own activities and how you spend your time. But then also from a go-to-market and a sales strategy, try to find something that can be leveraged to create urgency within your buyers, because you can have the perfect product for the right client and the time can be right, and it doesn't get done because there's not a urgency on the buyer's end to get it done. Or it does, but it takes 6 months and it should have taken 6 days, right? Yeah. And all of those things, particularly if you take large volumes of transactions, if everything takes 6 months instead of 6 days over and over again for long periods of time, you're just, massively impacting your sales cycle and your cash flow and things like that.
Yeah.
So
that's great advice. Mm-hmm. Where can people learn more about you and about Social HP online? I assume you're using Social HP and we can find you real easily.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. So socialhp.com is a great place to start. Obviously, from socialhp.com, you can get to our LinkedIn page, which again, corporate LinkedIn page, probably not where you're going to find most of our content. I'm not sure I mentioned it explicitly at the beginning. My name is Brad Dickinson. I'm a co-founder at Social HP. I'm on LinkedIn, as you would imagine. You can find us there as well. But, reach out directly to our corporate LinkedIn page, to our website, to me. We're always happy to meet new people and talk about what it is that we do.
Outstanding. We'll make sure and link all of that in the show notes. And everybody should go check out your content. So there's some really good stuff out there.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for being on SaaS Fuel, Brad. Thanks again, Brad, for coming on the show and sharing your journey and insights. You can learn more about Brad and Social HP at socialhp.com. I love the idea of getting teams to engage and promote social posts. It's really hard to do, and these guys have absolutely cracked the code. As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to check us out on YouTube as well. At Champion Leadership, full episodes, video shorts, outtakes, lots more stuff, training, cool stuff there. So go check that out. Thought leaders share. So share this episode with someone you follow online. Maybe the last post you commented on, or the last person who commented on yours. Together, we all win. Everyone who shares this week gets a Tiki Time teleporter. Just press a button and be instantly whisked away to a tropical paradise with virtual sun, surf, and the soothing sounds of guitars, ukuleles, maybe some kava, steel drums. Perfect for when you need an escape. No plane ticket required. All right. Next week's guest. Join us next Tuesday, where our founder is Stephen Webster, founder and CEO of Ascensi AI. It's an amazing use case for AI as a virtual trainer and revolutionizing the fitness industry. Very, very cool stuff. And he's an equally sharp founder as well. And then next week on our SaaS Fuel Expert Series, we have Brenda Viola, an award-winning news anchor, author, former QVC host who now inspires public servants and corporate teams through workshops, keynotes, reclaiming joy and overcoming burnout. So I will see you next time. And as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/saasfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.